Mental illness, a condition which causes serious disorder in a person's behavior or thinking. Stigma, a mark or disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. So for this, I'm going to need each and every one of you to trust me. Everybody close your eyes. Close them. Good. And now, please raise your hand if you suffer or previously have suffered from a mental illness. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask everyone to open their eyes. So if you feel comfortable, please keep your hands raised. Otherwise, please put it down. Now, everyone open your eyes and look around. You may put your hands down now, thank you. So before opening your eyes, a number of people did in fact put their hands down, and some didn't raise them at all. The reason being that they felt uncomfortable with people knowing that they had a mental illness. And I'm not at all shaming those who did put their hands down, but this is what the stigma is, and this is what it does to people. It makes them feel like having a mental illness is embarrassing, like it's a personal failure or weakness, that it's being lazy or selfish. Nobody wants to talk about mental illness as it's a taboo in this day and age, but when we bring up this controversial topic, everyone has so many different opinions about it. And opinions based on myths cause misconceptions and the stigma around it, which is why I unquestionably feel the need to talk about this. You know, society is always telling us that mental illness isn't real or it's imaginary, and that is where the stigma begins. The stigma cycle, as some like to call it, begins with the negative perception of mental illness. You see, I go to school with 950-ish students, and about 190 of those students have a mental illness. Now, half of those students will get treatment and see a psychologist or therapist, but the other half have been silenced by the disgrace that is associated with these illnesses. It has made them believe that they are weak and that their illness is just an excuse. We get this negative perception from how mental illness is portrayed in real life and in the media, but what we see and hear isn't always true. So let's go through some. Depression. When that word comes up, what do you think of? Because I know that when I use the word depressed, which is something that myself and all of us need to stop doing because it adds to the stigma, but when I use that word, I use it as an over-exaggeration for being sad. Like, after my favorite characters died in a TV show, it would always follow with, wow, I'm actually so depressed right now. But what I learned through some interviews that I took with people that actually had depression was that it's much more than being a bit upset. Depression is darkness. It's fear. It's worthlessness. It's pain. And it's deep thoughts of death or suicide. So it's not just an adjective that we can use whenever we wish. You know, I used to think, and some people still think, that this is what all depression looks like. And yeah, some people with depression can look like this at times, but majority of the time, this is what depression actually looks like. Now, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Social anxiety. Social anxiety isn't hating small talk or resenting meeting new people. Social anxiety is feeling like you're constantly being judged or feeling uncomfortable in public. It's avoiding people and situations like ordering food and having to recite the order in your head in case you've forgotten it, or making a phone call and basically having to script out what you're going to say. People living with this disorder have trouble doing so many everyday things, which makes life extremely hard for them. Now, anxiety disorder is non-stop worrying and anxiousness. Panic attacks don't always have to be hyperventilating and rocking back and forth, but they can be hypersensitivity, pacing, trembling, or silence. And in case you've never had a panic attack and you're still a little bit lost, do you know that sudden burst of fear that you get when you miss a step and almost die falling down the stairs? That's basically what a panic attack feels like. Now, anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating all fall under the category of eating disorders. Now, eating disorders aren't lifestyle choices, nor are they cries for attention. And they can occur in many ways, but one of the biggest nowadays is low self-esteem and body image. Now, social media is one of the biggest causes of low self-esteem because it's just a whole never-ending cycle of this is what you're expected to look like, and this is what everyone else is doing, so you need to do this too. And it's really exhausting. Social media has such a dangerous impact on our mental health because we all have that mindset that we need to purchase whatever appetite suppressant tea or candy that Kim or Khloe Kardashian are promoting to get that slim, thick body figure that everybody wants and is expected to look like. So a guy or girl with anorexia fears being overweight. And someone with bulimia binge eats and avoids gaining weight at all costs. And binge eaters feel loss of control when eating. So no, they can't just eat a sandwich or a hamburger to gain weight automatically, nor can they just go to a gym to lose all that weight, because it's just not that simple, and eating disorders don't work like that. They can happen in many ways and occur at any time, but majority of the time, it starts when someone logs into the thing in life that they can't live without: social media. Now, still following the stigma cycle, the next step is the fear of discrimination, which we have touched on briefly from that exercise that we did at the start. Because in the past, society has shamed those who have had the courage to speak out about their mental illness, it has caused those deeply suffering to have no choice but to keep quiet. Society perceives mental health disorders as something that's all in someone's head and isn't real, but to me, that's just like going up to someone who's asthmatic and saying that their disease isn't real and it's all in their lungs. Now, following the negative perception and the fear of discrimination, the next step in the stigma cycle is the avoidance of help and resources. And to be honest, if I was surrounded by friends or family that constantly made jokes or negative comments against mental illness, chances are high that I'd probably avoid opening up to anyone else. The stigma continues to make life a lot harder for victims of mental illness because we all put an image in everyone's mind that mental illness is a joke and that those with it are insane and it isn't real. And yeah, you can't see mental health disorders like you can with physical illnesses, but that doesn't mean that it's not there or isn't as real. And to those who still think like that, mental illnesses that are left untreated can have negative consequences on that person and the people surrounding them, like self-medicating with illegal drugs leading to substance abuse and worsening mental health problems. So how are we going to overcome the stigma and end the stigma cycle before it begins? Well, first, let's end the negative perception. And let's stop referring to people with mental illness as crazy and call out anyone around us who does. Then we can start educating people and start opening up mental illness to discussion in workplaces and classrooms. Lady Gaga says that we gotta take care of each other. So if you see someone who's hurting, don't look away. And if you're hurting, even if it might be hard, try to find that bravery within yourself to dive deep and go tell somebody. Now, if someone around you is trying to open up to you about what they're going through, please listen. Don't minimize what they're trying to tell you and be patient, because imagine how hard it is for them and what they're going through. A psychologist called Noam Spencer says that mental health is not a destination, but a process. It's about how you drive, not where you're going. Now, I know we can't solve this problem immediately because stigmas just don't work like that. But I really do have faith in this society that made life suck for people with mental illness to make it suck a lot less. Let's continue to call others out who are feeding the stigma cycle, and let's start acknowledging that mental health is just as important as physical health. And how about we all take a minute each day to be grateful for everything in life that isn't completely trash right now? Let's use our two hands to reach out a hand to someone, to anyone who needs support, and join together to overcome the stigma around mental illness. Thank you for listening.